Well, it's Seahawks week. That used to fill us with dread. Now it's the complete opposite. And we should still be in a very good mood because it looks like the 49ers have everything they need to beat the Seahawks on Sunday. We'll explain that and more on today's Gold Standard Podcast. What is good, everybody? Welcome to the Gold Standard Podcast on the Gold Standard and the Fans First Sports Network. I'm Rob Stats Guerrera. He is Levin Black. It's Thursday, Levin. Please tell me you're not going to be as much of a wet blanket as you were the last time we spoke.
I make no promises. It depends on how dumb you say you want to be this week. That depends on how much of a wet blanket I am. If I have to correct you all the time, I'm going to come off as more of a wet blanket,
Yeah. Look, I was right. I was right to be positive. You're down in the dumps. I'm trying to, build a little positivity, keep things light and happy here, and you're just dragging me down.
You were right to be positive. So what you saw last week was not the same problems that we've seen?
Oh, they were, but they won. They were slightly better. They improved slightly.
Is it good enough yet? Are they still playing to their talent level, or are they still playing like crap?
Hey, I like steps in the right direction. You don't. That's fine. That's just how we're different. That's okay. Everybody's different. I like when the team is a step closer to being the team that they want them to be.
Hey, you played like a little bit less like crap. You're a little bit less of a stinky pile of crap. Congratulations.
Right. Isn't that better than being more of a stinky pile of crap?
It depends. Are they going to win a Super Bowl this year? Because if not, I would rather be the super stinky pile of crap and get the number one pick.
It's November. I can't tell you who's going to win the Super Bowl this year. We'll get into the Seahawks preview. We'll get into Brock Purdy, Diamondor Lenoir. That news came out of nowhere and made everybody's week because I have not seen a single person upset about that. So we'll get into all of it here. Let's start with Brock Purdy. I'm excited for Brock because he owns the Seahawks, Levin. He's never lost to the Seahawks. He's always played well. You could argue his worst game against the Seahawks was his first game against them, and he had broken ribs in the game. Brock owns Seattle, and now that Christian McCaffrey is back, there is no reason why he shouldn't do the same on Sunday.
Yeah, everything you said is true. And we also said that about a game earlier this year, and that was the Rams game, and how'd that turn out? That's why, I'm not taking anything for granted. I'm going into this game saying I'll see what team shows up.
Brock wasn't the reason they lost the Rams game, though.
No, but did they lose to a team that literally was missing half of their starting lineup?
Again, human wet blanket. For anyone that's not watching the stream, Brock Purdy has a passer rating of 114.3 with over 1,000 yards, 8 touchdowns, and 2 picks against 4 games against Seattle in his career. He always plays well against the Seahawks. I thought things looked easier for Brock on Sunday than they've looked all season, which they should because he had Christian McCaffrey there. You can see the effect that McCaffrey has. There's just more space for everybody to operate, and Brock thrives when there's room to operate. So that's why I expect him to play well against Seattle.
I certainly expect him to play well. I think the last 2 weeks he's started to find himself. He started to work out of his funk. I don't think enough has been made of that since his stinker of a 3 interception game, the last 2 weeks, he has averaged over 300 yards passing. He has averaged more than 40 yards or almost 40 yards rushing, and he has 4 touchdowns to 0 interceptions in that time. So he has seemed to finally find his MVP form from last year.
Did you see any of Deebo Samuel's podcast earlier this week?
Yeah, where he said that Brock should be an MVP candidate.
And he said that Brock was mad after the game, that he was not happy with his performance. And Deebo went up to him and was like, hey, what's going on? And Brock said, I should have, made X, Y, and Z throws. And Deebo's trying to tell him hey, lighten up. But first, I like hearing that. I want my quarterback to think that way, honestly. And I think, honestly, I wish Deebo would think that way a little more too. Don't be satisfied, man. Keep pushing. And I took a lot of heat because I said that I didn't think Brock played great early in that game last week. And I think Brock would agree with me.
He didn't play great early in the game. He was missing some throws. He was a little bit off aim, but then he had a near perfect second half. So overall, the game was a good game. No quarterback is perfect. That's the thing. Like, I feel like once you think a quarterback is good, you expect every throw to be perfect.
Yeah.
And that's not Patrick Mahomes. He's missed throws where the guy's wide open and he overthrows them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not even a completed pass.
He did it against the Niners.
Right. I would rather have a underthrown completion than an overthrown where the wide receiver had zero chance of catching the ball.
Corey Soto says, find himself. I'll admit Brock found himself in the fourth against the Bucks, but he was lost until the third. He's not an MVP. Enough with this myth making. We didn't say he was an MVP.
No, we said I said he refound his MVP form. He played last week like he did last year.
He was awesome in the fourth. I think he had 160 yards in the fourth quarter last week. He was phenomenal. I would like to see him start a little faster. I feel like he's gotten off to some slow starts this year. I
think that has to do with team's approach, though. I think a lot of the slow starts is that they don't know what the team's going to throw at them because defenses have said, we're not going to play anything that we usually play against the 49ers. We're going to break all our tendencies. And that means both Kyle and Brock have to make adjustments at halftime based on what they're seeing from the other team because it's not something that they can see in film.
And look, hopefully with Christian, that becomes a little easier to detect. Kyle Shanahan talked about that. Basically, it's like, look, you either let McCaffrey go one-on-one against guys or you do something extra to try and stop him. And if you do something extra, I know what that's going to open up for the other guys. So hopefully that will lead to more of a fast start for Brock Purdy. You're going up against a divisional foe too. So like also that you would think that they would have a better idea of how Seattle was going to attack them. Now I know it's in the Mike McDonald and this is only the second time they've played him as a head coach, but hopefully that is the case. I would like to see Brock come out and kick a little ass right away. Let's not have one of these roller coaster games, please. Like we're allowed to just win by multiple scores and be kicking the hell out of people. I would really like that. Definitely not that. Stephen A., thank you for the super chat, says, did you see that Sonic and Knuckles both had 122 carries on the year? Why can't Kyle Shanahan do that? There's no reason he can't. He just doesn't. He doesn't ever want to take Christian McCaffrey off the field, period, end of story.
He wants the flexibility. He knows when Christian McCaffrey is on the field, there is an equal chance that it is a pass or a run. When you put Mason on the field, especially if it's in a split carry situation like this, it becomes much more likely that they're running instead of passing. He doesn't like losing that you don't know what I'm going to do factor, which to me is a mistake. I don't want equal like this. Sonic and Knuckles, by the way, if you don't know, are the Detroit running backs, Montgomery and Gibbs. I don't think it should be a full split carry, but I do think Mason should be getting 20% of the 20% of the snaps so that Christian McCaffrey is not getting destroyed. Like, save him for the playoffs.
And the other thing too, like I agree with what you're saying about the run pass, but like there's an easy way to fix that. Just start passing more with Mason on the field and like passing to him more, like you can create that doubt and you can create that uncertainty just by keeping the offense relatively the same.
Right. Like run a running back screen to Mason. Haven't seen it all year. Shanahan doesn't like doing screens to running backs. He likes doing screens to fullbacks and wide receivers, but not the running back. But run a couple screens to Mason because then the defense has to be respecting that. They have to respect the edges and they can't just crash inside.
And if you remember correctly, back to week 6, all the way back to week 6, feels like forever ago now, 49ers ran the hell out of the ball against Seattle. 33 carries for 228 yards. Garendo had 10. Mason had 9. Then you had Patrick Taylor had 5. Debo had 4. Juice had 1. Purdy had a couple runs as well. But they pounded the ball against Seattle. They scored 36 points. You can do that. Give McCaffrey like 13 carries. Give Mason 10. Give Garendo 5.
Yeah, I want to see more of them limiting Christian McCaffrey. There's no reason to go out there and say, well, we have this hampered Cadillac and we're just going to put the pedal to the floor until it completely falls apart. You can save it some. Save it until you need it.
And I get, like, I'm sure if Kyle Shanahan was watching this, which clearly he's not, but he would laugh and say, these two idiots, like, you can't just go in and say, we're going to get Christian McCaffrey 13 carries, right? It depends on game flow. It depends on, a bunch of factors, and I get that. But Jordan Mason had 1 carry last week. Isaac Rendo had 1 carry last week. That you can control. Like, that is clearly something that's within your control. The split doesn't have to be that stark.
And it's not just the 1 carry. I think they had 4 total snaps between the 2 backups.
Right. Yeah, McCaffrey played all but 8 snaps in the game.
Yeah. And that is similar to last year's numbers. And why do you want to be that big on using Christian McCaffrey? You don't have to do that. There are not many teams, even teams with the best running backs in the league this year, that play their starting running back the percentage of plays that Christian McCaffrey got just last week in his first week back. You know what I mean? Like, it's not normal for the starting running back to get 85% of snaps. Even Derrick Henry or some of the other top running backs aren't on the field for that number of snaps. They get more rest.
If you're wondering how Christian McCaffrey does against the Seahawks in his career, 97 carries for 579 yards and 7 touchdowns in 5 games. He owns the Seahawks. And there's Panthers games in there as well as 49ers games. He averages 116 rushing yards per game, as well as 53 receiving yards per game. So you're talking about 165 yards from scrimmage, basically, for Christian McCaffrey against the Seahawks. That's not going to lead Kyle Shanahan to take him off the field more.
No, it shows what Seattle's weakness has been over the last few years that Christian McCaffrey's been with the 49ers. And it's that they don't have great linebackers. And if you don't have great linebackers, Christian McCaffrey will destroy you.
And they don't this year. They just cut a linebacker, too, as a matter of fact. So there's no reason why he shouldn't continue to dominate. Debo always has good games against the Seahawks as well. He had a 76-yard touchdown pass in week 6. Remember, that was the pass where the safety was coming over, and Brock got it there with just enough time. Debo made a nice play on the ball, and then there was just nobody left. He took it all the way to the house for a touchdown. Clown Man says, what are we doing, man? Everyone talking about CMC? Come on, Rob. You're a good content creator, man. Let's go. Should I not talk about Christian McCaffrey?
I don't know. I disagree with the last part.
Shut up, Richard. Andre Garibay says, Christian McCaffrey and Jordan Mason together would be nice. You can put CMC in the slot. Kyle should explore that instead of having Juice running back and forth. Well, I wouldn't mind, like, you could come out with shotgun, CMC on one side, Mason on the other. Then you motion Christian McCaffrey to the slot, move somebody out of the way, get them out of the play, and hand the ball to Mason, have him just smash it up the middle, something like that. And again, like, I know that Kyle has probably thought of all these things. I know I'm not, saying things that he hasn't thought of before. I would like to know why he doesn't do that. We don't really usually see 2 running backs on the field for the 49ers at the same time.
No, he prefers to pretend Deebo Samuel is an effective running back still. Because he does do that with Deebo. He'll motion Deebo from the backfield back over to being a wide receiver or vice versa. I want to see more creativity. Those are the type of things that the Chiefs do frequently, where they just, hey, we're going to do something crazy here with our formation pre-snap, and it's going to confuse the defense, and we'll make something out of it.
Yeah, he likes the flexibility. I think he thinks if he keeps Juice on the field, he could keep teams in their base defense, and he has guys that are so flexible that it's easier to take advantage of a base defense, and I get that. I'm not saying you got to do all of one or all of the other. I just would like to see some things sprinkled in, especially, in the red zone. Maybe it's just enough of a sort of a weird look in the red zone to get somebody to hesitate for half a second. And a lot of times in that case, that's all you need. So I don't know. I'm hoping for it. I doubt we'll see it, but I remain hopeful as I do every week.
Yeah, save it for a 4th down, right?
Well, you'd have to actually go for it on 4th down. I mean, but that's going to be a thing, right? At some point, we know what's going to happen on Sunday. They're going to start a drive. Within the first 3 plays of that drive, they're going to smash a 35 or 40-yard play. And it's going to put them either like right outside the red zone or right in the red zone. And the drive is just going to stall out. And it's going to be like 4th and 2, 4th and 3, something like that. And then Shanahan's got the choice. Do you trot out Jake Moody again, or do you go for it on 4th down? And we know what he's going to do. He's going to trot out Jake Moody, and God help Moody if he misses.
I was going to say, if it's early in the game, I would personally trot out Jake Moody. Why? Because you want to know before the end of the game whether or not he fixed his issues. If he misses that field goal in the fourth quarter, I'm not relying on him to make a 50-yard field goal. I'm going for it on that fourth down. If you need the field goal to win, like I'm not relying on that. So you want to see where your kicker's headspace is and whether or not they are. I mean, kickers. They're the golfers of football. It's 90% mental. If they start to get in their own head, they will be a free agent very, very quickly. And we've seen kickers who started out extremely well, then have a year where they're just completely off. And some of them have made it back. Some of them haven't. Somebody like Greg Zuerlein, his first year in the NFL, he was making 55-yard kicks like they were nothing. And he came from nowhere doing this. And then his third season, he fell apart and he ended up getting released. And then he ended up being able to come back and still have a long career after that. But it can happen where a kicker just gets in their own head and they need a reset. And the only way to give them that reset is by sending them packing.
So we've seen it in his rookie year. Remember, he had those two games, the Cleveland game and the Minnesota game, where he was missing kicks. And then after the Minnesota game, he didn't miss another kick until the last week of the year. He went like 10 straight weeks without missing a field goal attempt. So we've seen it both ways for Moody. We've seen him miss after misses, and we've seen him go on a long streak after misses. I almost wonder if you're Kyle, like, do you want to come out and get him like either a short kick early just to get his confidence up, give him a short kick, have him see the ball go through the uprights, and then you're like, all right, you feel a little better about it if it did come down to that later in the game.
I mean, you're not going to purposely try to get that, but that's what I'm saying. Like, if you have a 4th and short and it's a 35, 40-yard field goal, I'm probably going to take the field goal early on. Get Moody that first kick and see where he's at. I will say this. I did go back and watch the misses, and I would say as encouraging as a miss can be, those were encouraging. It's still a miss, but his issues to me seem to be evaluating the wind because his kicks are dead on straight. Usually when a kicker is off, they start pulling one way or the other, just like a golf swing. Because it's the same motion. You're just using a leg rather than a club. It's a pendulum coming and hitting something and trying to get it to go straight and right where you want to. But there was no bending. There was no shanks. It was all straight kicks. It was that he was kicking here and expecting the wind to move it, and it didn't. And that is something hard to do. I mean, I think it's an underestimated aspect that people don't understand that a lot of NFL stadiums, when you kick the ball, there is wind at the field level, but the field level is different because you have the crowd protecting you. But when you get the ball up above, when it's flying through the air, it gets above that field level and the wind can be drastically different, especially the ones that are near water. Like Pittsburgh is known for that there's a different wind and trajectory that your football is going to have once it arrives above the stadium level. And I think he was misjudging the wind last week because his kicks were straight and they were just missing getting a push in the same direction. He kept expecting the wind to push it away that it did not.
And the last field goal he made was the 44-yarder, was in the exact same spot as the 44-yarder he missed. Like literally the exact same spot. I actually saw there's a John Boy breakdown of the whole Deebo Samuel Tabor Pepper. Do you know who John Boy is?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's the guy that he does all the funny baseball he does all sports actually, but he does like the lip reading breakdown.
Yeah, the dub overs, yeah.
He apparently, according to him, and he seems to be pretty good at doing this, so I have no reason to doubt it, that Tabor Pepper said to Deebo, do you think he's trying to miss? Like, or do you think he's not trying? Like, of course, you say lock in, like he's trying. It's not that. And he said, do you think he's trying to miss, you dumbass? Which is funny.
I think there's more to that story because there's the angle where you see the back of Tabor and you see the front of Deebo, and they're already getting after it. It's right when Deebo pushes him, whatever you want to call it, makes contact with Tabor. And then if you're watching Deebo's mouth from that angle, that's when he says lock in. So what did he say prior to that to get them at each other's throats? That's what I think that there was something else there, and they're keeping it in-house.
Somebody asked in the comments, sorry, let me see if I can bring it up. Nick Ellert asked, has Jake Moody ever kicked in Tampa? We give quarterbacks a chance in new climates. He hadn't ever kicked in Tampa, but like you also have warm-ups during the game and I get it, but man, you can't.
He did. I did see where he did say that he expected the wind to move it, and it didn't.
Yeah.
And like I said, wind is a fickle thing.
Mistress.
Yeah. Pre-game, he probably was getting the push from the wind.
Could be.
And then in the game, he wasn't. And Tampa is a coastal place, so wind changes dramatically quickly. And like I said, it's a hard thing to do. I'm not giving him excuses. He is paid to be able to make those adjustments.
Right.
He should have made those kicks. But there's a lot more to it than, like, I was going back and forth a little bit on Twitter this week because somebody said he just needs to aim for the center of the uprights. Oh yeah, it's that simple. Yes. Just aim for the center of the uprights. That's all he needs to do.
I think he should just make all his kicks. I mean,
yeah.
Why don't galaxy braid this thing? Michelle texted me this. The 49ers, Michelle Majic, who hosts with me on Fridays, she's also a researcher for NFL Network. The Niners have attempted 4 field goals this season of less than 30 yards with less than 3 yards to go on 4th down. So 4th and short from really close, the Niners have kicked more field goals in that scenario than anybody else in the NFL. The Niners have 4. The rest of the NFL combined has 12 in that same scenario. So the Niners do it way more than everybody else. And it'll be interesting to see this Sunday. Like you said, maybe it won't come down to that. Maybe the Niners will score a touchdown early. Moody will kick the extra point, and Kyle will think like, hey, that he's fine. It's good. We'll just proceed as normal. But if they don't, and they are in that scenario, 4th and 4 from the 12-yard line, do they just say screw it and go for it?
We're going to find out. I mean, kickers kick in practice. So if Moody indeed is in his head, Kyle probably saw that in practice.
Yeah, that's true. But he had said that Moody looked great in practice leading up to this. So
yeah,
you really don't know until you get out there. Nick Ellert says, Levin, do you think that Debo showed leadership in that moment or lack thereof?
I think we don't know the truth. So it's hard for me to know for sure. If all he did was go over and say lock in, then I would say Tabor overreacted. And then Debo definitely didn't show leadership when he got physical with a teammate. I don't care what the scenario is. That is never okay. The only way I would say that's okay is if you already have a teammate getting physical with another teammate, yeah, go get physical, go restrain that teammate, get him out of the way, shove him, whatever. But that wasn't the case here. So Debo did not show leadership pushing Tabor, but I don't know what caused the start and whether Tabor was in the wrong at all or if he was in the right the whole time because Debo was out of line from the very start. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't like that look from a captain, right? The captain is supposed to be the example for everybody, and you never want a teammate to go after the throat of another teammate. It was not a great situation. Kyle Shanahan said that they nipped it in the bud. For what it's worth, Jake Moody never seemed to have a problem with it because Debo was never really going after Jake Moody. The issue is between Debo and Tabor Pepper. And this it doesn't really matter if your wide receiver and your long snapper are friends. In fact, it doesn't matter if the long snapper's friends with anybody on the team. So it's not really that big a deal, but it was the thing that happened. You never see the 49ers go after each other. We've never seen that in the Kyle Shanahan era. And I think it just, it's because of the frustration and it's because of where this team is. They know it's the last dance. They know it's the last ride. They know they have sort of put themselves in a bad spot this year. And it's just a signal that this isn't the same. They're in a tough spot right now.
We can go on Debo because you want to talk about people that need to lock in. He's maybe numero uno this season because he's not having a good year. And he even had a drop this last week prior to that altercation with a teammate. So how about they all just lock in?
Somebody in my live chat in the instant reaction show that I did to the Diamador Lenoir contract said they need to buy lock-in shirts. They should have shirts made up that say lock in, and they should make that the rallying cry for the rest of the season. I think we should do that. We should get a merch shop open it up, and have lock-in shirts.
Okay.
We should do it before a very famous other 49ers podcast does it. That would make a lot more sense if you knew the name of their show.
Yeah, make an image, send it to me. I, in my COVID days, got bored and started in not Etsy. Dang, I'm drawing a blank. Etsy. I can make shirts. Yes, I have an account. I did the drop shipping thing. I didn't make a ton of money, but I made, I don't know, like $1,000 over the year, but then I didn't have time for it anymore. And
how are you just telling me? I wanted to start a merch shop and you're just sitting.
And I have told you, but you didn't pick. Oh, yes, I did. Years ago. I told you I have the capability of doing drop shipping. I used to have a store, but we were with SB Nation at the time, and you were worried about us trying to sell things while you were employed by another. That SB Nation does have a store of their own.
First of all, I think you're making that entire thing up. But second of all, that does sound like a perfectly reasonable and logical response from me. So either way, at
the time, it would have been a very gray area. I remember saying something like, well, I can be the one that does this, and they don't, it's not you. But yeah, it was kind of a gray area. But,
well, then we got to do that. We got to get on that. I've got shirt ideas. People are sending me shirt ideas.
I know. I kept waiting on you to actually create something.
Well, why? You could have reminded me. How about that, you jerk?
I said I know I have told you since we've been out on our own, when you were talking about, I'm trying to remember the shirt that you wanted to make last year, and I can't remember it, but I remember there being one that you were like, I really should make this when we were talking off the air. And I was like, yeah, I can get that sold. I can make it. You just and I remember telling you, send me the design that you want and I can get it made.
All right. Well, that'll be a separate conversation we have off the air. Let's get back to this game. Another huge thing in this game, Levin. I'm not sure Nick Bosa is going to play. He called last week the most painful thing he's ever played through. And he was asked specifically yesterday, are you going to play? And he was like, I don't know. It's going to be very close, he said. And if he doesn't
play, said he can't gut it out again if it's like last week.
If he doesn't play, they are not going to get any pressure on Geno Smith. And if they don't get pressure on Geno Smith, he's going to carve them up.
Yeah, I mean, it's the problem with the defense. It's either Nick Bosa is a defensive player of the year leveled Nick Bosa, or the pass rush sucks.
Right.
Because the problem is that the team doesn't adjust to, all right, our pass rush isn't getting done. Let's blitz. Let's be creative. No, this defense, the whole philosophy since Shanahan came in and brought the wide nine and all that has been, we're going to rush 4 except for in very rare circumstances. And I hate it. Be creative. You can rush 4 plenty still, but you can do stunts. You can do, hiding, pretending you're going to blitz and then falling back. You can create a lot of confusion by constantly having your linebackers move around pre-snap and then get to wherever they're going, whether they're blitzing or not. And they don't do any of that. I very rarely see a linebacker act like they're going to blitz pre-snap and then fall back into coverage. But then when they do go to blitz, it's like, oh, yeah, he looks like he's going to blitz. I bet there's a 99% chance he is, because they never do the stunting and pretending like they're going to blitz and then fall back. They don't do any of that trying to confuse the opposing offense. They have a defensive philosophy of, we're better than you. We're going to match up one-on-one and beat you.
And I feel like when they do blitz, they don't get home. Like they blitz and it's like, oh, the other team picks it up. And then now, you're at a deficiency in coverage because you're trying to send extra guys to rush the passer. Bosa didn't participate yesterday. Kittle, Trent Williams, Mitch Wishnowsky, maybe he doesn't play at all. Mooney Ward, of course, and Kevin Givens all did not participate in practice. Kyle said he anticipates that Kittle will be back out there today, so hopefully that's good. Trent Williams was given his rest day, but also was listed with an ankle on the injury report, so he's had ankle issues in the past. I wonder how much that's been a thing with him, because to me, he has not looked like the same Trent Williams that we have seen. So there are some potentially scary injuries. The good news, Christian McCaffrey was limited, but it was not a flare-up at all. Kyle Shanahan specifically was asked and said, nope, they're just, trying to be smart with him. And Renardo Green had a toe coming out of the game, but he was a full participant yesterday. And Yetur Gross-Matos was a full participant too, which that'll be nice to get him back in the fold.
Yeah, I mean, there are some scary ones there, but I think the only two that could have an effect come Sunday, I guess there's three. Obviously, the Mooney Ward, if he's not practicing, then I'm guessing he's not going to be playing this weekend, and take all the time you need on that one.
Mm-hmm.
But the Nick Bosa, if he doesn't play, obviously that has a huge effect. I would say by the fact that they released somebody in order to sign a punter, Mitch Wisnowski is not going to be playing. And if the punter is serviceable, then it's fine. You can manage that. But if your punter is slow to get off a kick and it gets blocked or shanks them and has a bad game, it can have a huge effect. It's one of those things. Punting, even more so than kicking, is you expect every single one of them to be good, and there's no forgiveness for a single bad play by your punter.
Pat O'Donnell is the punter that they have brought in. He did not punt last year in the NFL at all. He was the punter for the Packers in 2022. Kyle also pointed out he has extensive experience as a holder, because remember, Mitch Wisnowski is the holder on field goals. Yeah. We don't need to make things any more difficult for Jake Moody by having, like, you want somebody in there that you think you can trust. So again, hopefully it all comes down to the Niners just executing. I mean, hell, they only punted one time last week.
Yeah.
Crazy that Mitch Wisnowski's back injury flared up. He only punted once. Now, he did have to hold for 6 field goals and some PATs, so maybe that was the thing. I don't know. Back injuries are weird, man. You hurt your back, it can completely debilitate you, and it could flare up at any time. Like, you could literally sneeze, and that could be the end of it. So back injuries are very touchy.
Yeah, my sciatic nerve used to be pinched, like permanently. Degenerative thing that once I got out of shape, this is what doctors told me. Once I got out of shape, I started feeling the pain. When I was young and playing soccer, my core was strong enough that I didn't feel it. One of the times that it went out completely, what I was doing was I forgot a piece of paper at home that I needed to bring with me to where I was going. And I ran back in and I reached over to grab the piece of paper, a single piece of paper. And when I lifted it, I was in just the right way that I pinched that nerve and my whole back locked up, and I crawled to my car to get to a chiropractor.
That's brutal.
Yeah, I have literally had my back go out because I picked up a single piece of paper.
Hey, look, it's only going to happen more and more. We're old now, and yeah, that's going to be rough.
Not yet. Next year we're old. We're not in our 40s yet.
That's true, but I mean, the days are dwindling for me. Literally 2 months from 40 for me right now. So yeah, I'm not looking forward to that day. That man 8959 says, bring on the goals. They should win this game. Whether it's Mitch Wisnowski or what, they should win. The Seahawks are teetering right now. Okay. They've lost, I think it's 5 of their last 6 games. They just don't look right. They don't look good. Mike McDonald, it's his first year. They're still sort of building things up there. You're at home, by the way, too. You really need this game if you're the 49ers. This is one of the 3 games left on the schedule for the 49ers that you absolutely have to win. You should win. This is one of the easier games left on the schedule. As I throw it up on the screen here, if you're watching the stream, the Seattle game, the Bears game, and the Dolphins game, to me, are 3 that you should have in the bag. You can't mess around and lose this game, because then you're putting yourself in a scenario where you've got to beat the Packers and the Bills and the Lions and the Cardinals. That's a dubious proposition. So no messing around on Sunday.
They really can't afford to lose another divisional game.
Right.
That's just the way it is. They got to beat the Seahawks. They got to beat the Rams, and they got to beat the Cardinals. If they lose one of those, good luck. If they lose one of those, they pretty much have to win darn near the rest of the games to get in the playoffs. And you can even go as far as saying that if they're going to lose, they need to lose to the Dolphins and the Bills and win the rest. Because if they're, let's say, 10-7,
right,
and they've lost 2 of these NFC remaining games, they're not winning a tiebreaker. If there's another 10-7 team that they need the tiebreaker in order to get in the playoffs. And that's because they've dropped so many NFC games already. They can't afford NFC losses.
Right now, they are 3-3 in the conference. The good news is that nobody in the division has a better NFC record than that. The Cardinals are also 3-3 in conference. The Rams are 3-4. The Seahawks are 1-4. So that is the good news. And if you do drop one of those games, your hope then has to shift to getting help from somebody else, from one of those other teams. So at least that's good that the Cardinals are not any better against the NFC. That actually could be very important.
Yeah, look, the next couple of weeks are going to answer a lot of questions for the 49ers. The Seahawks, the Packers, and the Bills, how they come out of those 3 games, they need a minimum 2-1, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
If they are 500 coming out of those 3 games on the season, 6-6, they're toast. I don't think they're making the playoffs.
Yeah, it would certainly be a scary, scary situation. I don't ever want to be in a situation where you need help from other people. I just don't. And I feel
that's why you were so nervous when you were let go last year, because you needed help from other people.
Oh, that is true.
I have learned this, by the way. You hate relying on other people. You appreciate it, but you hate relying on other people.
What do you mean? What kind of a statement is that to make?
It is. When somebody else says, "Oh, I can do that," you're like, "Nope, I got it."
Well, when it's my thing, I do
I
feel
know.
a little responsible for, everything. But why? Is there something you wanted to do that I didn't let you do? Is that what this is?
No, but even the finances. It was when I said, "Hey, I'll handle finances. I'll keep track of it. I'll create a spreadsheet." You're like, "No, you don't have to do that. You don't have to do that." And then I did it, and you're like, "Oh, you didn't have to do that, man. You didn't have to." That was how you handled all that until it was done, and then you were like, "Okay, thank you." But I had to basically ignore your wishes in order to do it.
Well, it's weird. Like, now you actually work for me. So that's at that time when we created everything, it wasn't I don't expect people to do stuff for me for free, out of the niceness of their heart. I feel like I don't want to take advantage of anybody. That's the thing. And I felt like I would have been taking advantage of you if I was like, yeah, do all that.
Well, there's plenty of people in this world that I would love to be taken advantage by. You're not one of them.
Right. That's what I mean. Exactly. Nick Ellert says Cumulus had another round of layoffs during the holidays. Yeah. I know Tom Tolbert just got laid off by KNBR, which is incredible because he's been there forever. And I saw that news and I said to my wife yesterday, I said, I don't know, it's nice to not live in that world where in this industry, you could get laid off when you're killing it. We were the #1 SB Nation podcast when I got laid off. It's just the nature of the business. And so when I saw that Tom Tolbert news yesterday, I was just like, at least now I'm in total control of everything.
That is the way the media model has gone. It is get big enough to where you have enough of a following to launch your own stuff. Because these media companies they lay people, even ESPN's been doing it. They lay people off every couple of years, and it's only their biggest that survive. Oh, I saw that coming. I know what you're reacting to.
John Shoup says that's not true. Rob relies on Michelle and Levin to carry the show all the time.
Twice a week, at least.
John, you know what? The funny outweighs the mean. So good job by you. I do appreciate it. How about this from Randy Galella? YouTube channel member, nonetheless, says life expectancy is 77. If you're over 37, you're both going downhill now. Gee, thanks, Randy.
He's wrong. Do the math. 37 doubled is 74. Now we are 39, so we are going downhill because 39 doubled is 78. So we have surpassed the life expectancy. But his example, I was going to throw it up and then I looked at it and I was like, the math is wrong on that one.
That's not helpful. I really don't need that. Okay.
Yeah. 37 is not over the hill, but we're not 37.
Yeah.
We are 39, which is officially the over the hill mark.
We didn't talk about the Diamador Lenoir contract extension. I went live and did the show, and I was saying it was one of the hardest shows to do because it was this is just really good by everyone. And then I didn't know what else to say. There's no downside to this at all.
I would say it's phenomenal for the team. For Lenoir, it's nice to get locked in, but I do feel like if he said, I'm going to test on the market, he would have gotten more.
Oh, yeah. So I believe that a lot more.
This is a very team-friendly deal. That's what this is. He would have been almost assured the number one corner on the market, and he would have reset the market at cornerback if he hit the market.
He's not even in the top 10 for highest paid corners by average per year. And then we haven't seen the details of the contract, by the way, which leads me to believe that maybe it's an even more team-friendly deal than we think. Because usually when a new contract gets signed, the agent, if it's really good, the agent, pumps the details out to everybody. So we'll see. I mean, it could be, maybe it's just a good contract for everybody. That's entirely possible too. But what is it? 18.4 million per year is what the math works out to, essentially. Like, that's awesome. That is so good for the 49ers. Thank you, Diamondor Lenoir.
I would guess that this contract, the details come out one of two ways. Either there's not much flexibility for the 49ers. So the Lenoir, while it's less average annual value, so he's less in the rankings because that's how they rank contracts.
Mm-hmm.
He is assured getting more of the contract than other people that were higher, or this is the base value, but he has significant accelerators in it or bonuses tied to it, where if he makes a Pro Bowl or an All Pro, or he gets 5 interceptions in a season, things like that, while it's 18.4, if he gets any of those in a contract, then that year becomes as valuable as the top contracts.
Or it could be a thing where if he makes an all-pro team, then the rest of the contract gets bumped up. I mean, they could do whatever they want to do. He could be an all-pro this year. If he had a couple more picks, I feel like he'd be getting more love. He also has a scoop and score. Remember, they blocked the field goal against Arizona. He scooped it up and scored a touchdown on that as well. He's so good. And I love the attitude that he has. I feel like this team and this defense really need that. They lost a couple of those guys, and I love that he's going to be sticking around.
Yeah, it's really just him and Warner that kind of have that bulldog mentality. My guess is he ends up a second team All-Pro. He's got that classic season where, okay, in terms of actual quality of play, you're a first teamer, but you don't have the gaudy stats that we look for. So you don't get the first team with the guys leading interceptions, but we recognize how good of a season and how locked down you were by giving you second team.
And then maybe next year he'll have the recognition and all that stuff to make his way onto the list for first team. But either way, thank you, Diamondor Lenoir. Renardo Green, like I said, was a full participant. Looks like it's probably going to be Lenoir and Renardo Green as the corners this week, which is good because DK Metcalf was a full participant in practice yesterday, so he may be back out there for the 49ers. We all remember Renardo Green making a huge interception in that Week 6 game that helped close the door in that one on a pass to DK Metcalf, as a matter of fact. So excited to see that matchup as well. Levin, something happened last night that made me think of you. Because I felt
I hope you weren't dreaming.
in this scenario, I felt like you and I would have reacted the same way. So my wife has a dance class every Wednesday night, and she usually gets back around 9:30. And all of a sudden, she calls me at 9:15, and she's like, "I'm at the gas station. I'm filling up my car, but I locked my keys in my car." I'm like, "All right, where are you?" She's like, "I'm a mile away from the house." I was like, "Okay, I'll get the spare and I'll just come and pick you up." Like, my son is 10 years old. My daughter's 4.5. My daughter was asleep. I was going to just tell my son, like, just hang out. Well, I'll be back in 5 minutes. And I said, "Honey, I can't find your spare. Do you know where it is?" She said, "Yes." I said, "Great. Where is it?" She said, "It's on my keychain." Locked inside the car. I said, "Why would you have your spare set of keys on your regular keys?" She said, "Yeah, I guess that's stupid."
Yeah. There would have been some jokes made at my wife's expense. And those jokes would probably continue for years after the incident.
I was looking all around the house. I was like, "It's got to be here. It's got to be here." Because we usually I know right where the spares are, but that's because that's where I keep mine. And I found a spare set of keys for a car I owned in 2007. So that was really helpful. But
so my question is not to put you on the spot. What does your wife drive? Because the vehicles that so mine's a Camry, and if the keys are in the car, it does not allow it to be fully locked, or at least it can't stay locked, because if you walk up and you touch the handle, it will unlock itself. My wife's isn't that advanced, but even those, if you try to lock the door with the key in there, it knows, and it will like not allow you to lock the driver door.
So our cars are too old for that. I think she has a 2016. I think it's a 2015 or 2016 Forester, Subaru Forester. The only thing, it won't let you lock the doors. Like if you have the door open and the car is running, it won't let you lock the doors. It'll unlock them immediately. But her car was off because she was getting gas. So that's how that went down. And so it was brutal, because then we had to call AAA, and she had to wait an hour for AAA to come, because there was nothing I could do to help her. We only have the one spare, and she had it on her keychain, which was locked in the car. So she had to sit at the gas station for an hour and wait for AAA to come.
Yeah. I am the type of person that would have tried everything I can first before I call and pay for somebody to come open it.
Well,
I would have tried to force the windows down, all that stuff.
It's AAA. Like I pay for it.
You want to. I don't.
Nick Ellert says Rob doesn't have the money for new cars after he bought a 105-inch TV. Look, we don't have any car payments, so that's why we have old cars, because they ain't costing us any money. So I'm driving.
My wife's is a 2011, so
there you go.
You have an old enough car that I'm surprised it allowed you to lock it.
Definitely not that Stephen A. YouTube channel member says, so you can't tell her to lock in because she'll take it literally.
She beat him to it.
Right. Yeah. That's the problem, is that she was too locked in. It's the opposite of the Jake Moody situation.
Yeah. Why did she have her spare on the keychain to begin with?
No, she never answered me. She was just like, yeah, I guess that's probably not a good way to do it. I was like, I think it might have something to do with the fact that her, the key fob stopped working. And so I think maybe she went to the spare, and then she just didn't switch it. I don't know. I can't explain it. I would never do it. It's so far outside of the realm of my thinking that I cannot fully acknowledge.
That can't happen for me, because my wife, she can't deal with, getting the things to hold your keys, the ring, open and getting keys off of them. So every time she needs to like swap anything, she's like, just do it, because she can't stand it. And so I do it. And if I'm like swapping key fobs because one of them is dead, but I need to get the house keys or something on the current key fob she's going to use, I take the old key fob off at the same time I'm doing that. You already have the new key fob going in, so it's pried open. Take the old one off at the same time so that you never, ever have them on the same keychain.
That is the weirdest thing ever. So your wife doesn't like to separate the little things on the keychain?
She hates it.
Why?
I think maybe because, one, I think she struggles to get in there without chipping a nail or something. She doesn't have crazy fancy nails or anything, but I think she just does not like trying to get her fingernails in there to pry it open. And then, you got to pry it open and hold it open. So you can get it started. She doesn't do those things well.
Andre says I should have driven to the gas station, let her drive home, and I should have waited for AAA myself.
Yeah, no.
I feel like, no, you're the one.
You made that mistake. You can lie in it and think about why you don't put both key fobs on the same keychain loop.
I don't think it's my duty to have to do that.
I would say part of that would depend on where, you live in Connecticut, I would imagine, in a relatively safe area. If this was my wife is in the city and this is happening or something, then yeah, I'm probably loading up the kids and going there, and we're all just going to sit there together.
Yeah. If she was a mile away from the house, that was the first thing I said to her. I was like, are you safe? And she was like, yes. So she just waited inside the gas station. Nick Ellert says Rob's wife is returning the TV to get a car made this century. That TV's not going anywhere, man. That thing is a godsend. Randy says shove a nail file into the key ring. That's the thing. Like, your wife, you can use tools to pop that thing open. You don't have to use your fingernail.
But then you're cheating. There's a challenge there. You're not allowed to use tools. Who needs a tool to open a keychain ring?
First of all, the chat has jokes today. Definitely not that Stephen A says. She's like Kyle. She has one keychain that she likes and she refuses to use another.
And she punted on 4th down. She called you.
Yeah, well, and I solved the problem. That's all I do. I'm just a problem solver.
She could have called AAA if she knew, I don't have my spare key because it's on the keychain stuck in the car. I'm going to call AAA and just not let my husband know that this happened.
Well, she didn't have the card. I have
Ah,
the card. So Marcus Nullius says, I had a similar situation last Saturday, had to wait for AAA because of a lockout. Only difference is it was rainy, cold, and my phone wouldn't allow me to unlock via Viper Smart Start. Well, that would be twice as frustrating as if you have a thing on your phone specifically that's designed to let you unlock the door and it doesn't work. That would have sent me over the edge.
I know my brother one time locked his key. Now, this is impossible, and even your wife's car wouldn't allow it, as you said already. He locked his keys in his car while it was running in a parking lot, and his phone was in the car.
Oof. So what did he do?
He walked to a business and was able to use their phone. And this was, I don't know, 15, maybe 20 years ago. So it was ancient enough that he actually knew the phone number of the person he needed to call still.
Right. If it's not my wife, I'm going to be honest. Like your number, I have no idea what your number is.
I don't even know what your area code is.
Exactly. Let's just end this on a 49ers question. Nick Ellert says, when was the last time the Niners won on a last-second kick? What will give more momentum, the Demo contract or winning on the last play? That's a good question.
Well, last second kick. I mean, Moody made the game-winning kick last week late. It wasn't last second. I know for a fact that Gold did it a handful of times. Yeah, a handful of times. So I would guess probably a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I think the Lambeau game, right? That was the last.
I do think Moody's done it once before, made a last second kick, but I think it was a tied game to where if he missed, it wasn't quite as like make it or we lose. And I'm trying to think of what game that would have been. I could be making that up.
But do you think that the win was kind of tempered by the whole sideline flare-up thing? Like the momentum from the win was tempered because of that?
I don't think so, but I don't know for sure because we don't know the actual details of that flare up. We don't know what was actually said. Like I said, I think there is an element missing here that set Tabor off, and only the team knows that, and they're keeping it in house. The fact that Kyle said he addressed it tells me that something was out of line there, and it probably wasn't just the shove.
Well, Kyle said he wasn't going to address it until he saw all the coverage of it on SportsCenter, which is like, how could you not address it? You had teammates going at each other on the sideline. You have to address that, whether it's on SportsCenter or not.
Yeah, we're never going to know.
Right. Well, we will. Maybe when somebody leaves the team, and then we'll find out the details years later down the line. Regardless, I'm predicting a 49ers win on Sunday. Are you with me?
Yeah. You already listed all the reasons. Let's see. Purdy dominates Seattle. Debo dominates Seattle. Christian McCaffrey dominates Seattle. And DK Metcalf lays an egg every time he plays the 49ers. So, yeah, I mean, it's one of those that so many things are stacked in the 49ers' favor that you're nervous because too many things look good.
I'm glad you're on board. Mr. Negative. At least you're on me on the...
I'm not Mr. Negative. I'm Mr. Reality. The reality is this team has not played nearly as well as they should this season.
That's yes. But also like we are holding them up to the standard of themselves from 2023. And I think that that's the mistake. Like they're never getting back to that. So if you're going to be disappointed, if
I'm not holding them to 2023 standards. I'm holding them to the talent that they have and what they're capable of. The reason why these games are close is because they constantly make critical mistakes. And as I've said, it's the leaders that are often making them. The penalties and things like that, the drops, it's the leaders that are making the mistakes, and that's troublesome for me. But it's not just, oh, the other team had a good game plan, we struggled with it. It's, oh, well, we were moving the ball, and then we had a penalty in the red zone or something that destroyed that drive, or we made a mistake on special teams that is inexcusable. That's why it's not like previous years. It's you have the capability of doing this well, and you keep making the critical mistakes that allow this to be a toss-up at the end of the game.
Nick Elwert says Warner interception touchdown loading on Sunday. Be nice. I feel like it's been a couple weeks since Fred Warner made like one of those impact type plays that he was making earlier in the season. So sign me up.
There was no turnovers last week.
Yes, there was the punt.
Well, I'm talking about for the 49ers defense.
Right. Yes.
Like the defense is due.
Which is crazy. Like they did not force a turnover. They lost the turnover battle because they gave one away. They missed 3 field goals.
They were on the road.
They were on the road. They had 3 straight defensive penalties on the final drive and still won.
Yeah.
That's the wildest part about that game. But you know what? Like I always say, just like Moody's game winner, right? It barely scraped by the upright. Well, it looks like a line drive in the box score. It looks like it went right down the middle in the box score. A win is a win is a win. And if they can build on it again and beat Seattle on Sunday, that'll be 3 straight wins going into Green Bay. Then they'll be 6-4 with the potential to go to 7-4 to stack more NFC wins. The train will start kind of picking up that momentum as it goes down the tracks.
Yeah, if they get to 7-4, I'm going to be a lot more cheery and positive because if they can win, beat Seattle, take care of business, but then win on the road in Green Bay late in the year when it's cold, that could be a tight battle where they just barely squeak it out. That's one of those games that if you win, it's a massive positive in the right direction because it's not a game that you can go in and expect them to blow them out. I don't care what happens to Green Bay in this next week. You don't go on the road late season in Green Bay and be disappointed in a win, no matter how you won.
So if that happens, you'll take the stick out?
What do you mean by stick out?
You know damn well what I mean. But how nice would that be to be 7-4 going into that Buffalo game? Then if you lose the Buffalo game, which they probably will, you don't feel nearly as bad as opposed to if that loss were to drop you back to 500.
Yeah, like I said, if they are at 500 after the next 3 weeks, it's put a fork in them.
I don't want to think about that scenario right now. That's going to do it for this edition of the show. Please rate, review, and follow the Gold Standard Podcast Network wherever you get your good audio podcasts. Like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. We went over 15,000 followers. We are steamrolling towards 16,000, as a matter of fact, which is incredible. If this is your first show, thank you. Please like and subscribe. I promise you we will earn your time if you give us a chance. Just watch a couple of shows. I promise you will like what you see. Are you going to be around for the instant reaction show on Sunday?
I will, and I was also going to say that last little thing that you said, give us a chance or like what you see, goes for sponsors as well.
Yes, that's true. We've got some space available. Let's just say that. Hopefully we can lock down a couple of these things. That man 8959 says I liked and subscribed. Yeah, you get a fist pump from me. Thank you very much. We appreciate it, and we won't let you down. So enjoy the rest of your Thursday, everybody. Make sure you join us live after the game. We're live every single weekday and after every single 49ers game for you. Have a good one. We'll talk to you tomorrow.